How do you create something that's different than everyone else? You do it differently than everyone else. Here at Copeland Creative, we specialize in telling captivating stories of wild people, wild things, and wild places. We don't just capture the story, we immerse ourselves in it. We are a diverse, multi-talented media house based in North Georgia, and if you have a story that needs told, we want to help you tell it.
What's up, folks? Welcome back. As promised, I am here again wearing the same shirt that I was in the last podcast because, surprise, sometimes with production schedules, you have to do 3 podcasts in a day. There might actually be one after this where I'm going to wear the same shirt. So either we did them all in a day, or I only wear this shirt, or I only wear this shirt for podcasts. And you guys can decide which of those you would like to believe. I can tell you which one is true, but you can fill in the blanks. I am here with Chris Greene. Say hey, Chris.
What's up? How's it going?
It's going good. For all of you guys, I'm going to do a mini introduction, and then I'll let Chris actually introduce himself. But Chris joined the team, the Copeland Creative team, what was it, like a month and a half, 2 months ago?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah. So we're excited to have him on. Figured we should introduce him to you guys, let him talk a little bit about himself, and then other than that, we're just going to kind of roll with it. I think we've got, 45 minutes here, so talk about whatever comes to mind.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited, man.
Heck yeah. Okay, so introductions. This first part sounds really awkward. I promise Chris and I have met before. we have had conversations. But I'm not always the best formal interviewer. I would certainly not be good on 60 Minutes. But
I'm not the best podcaster, so we're maybe 2 negatives make a positive here. We'll see how it goes.
Maybe. We'll see. I guess introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you.
Cool. Yeah, like Ryder said, my name is Chris Greene. Some of you might know me by Trail Red on Instagram. A certain niche of the industry knows me by Reggie. We can dive into that story at another time. But yeah, I've been doing creative work full time for, I think, going on 5 years now. I think 5, all predominantly in the outdoor space, kind of dabbling outside that a little bit, more in like the recent years. Yeah, predominantly cam op editor, outdoor enthusiast. So, that's pretty much it. I don't really have much time for much else. So, so that's what I do.
I don't think I've ever asked you, where did the name Trail Red come from?
So originally I picked up a camera originally because, like everybody else, I wanted to be a YouTuber. At the time, my only hobby outside of working was bow hunting. So I started a YouTube channel, was trying to come up with a name. Obviously, like Blood Trail is something that would have been like a no-go as far as like the algorithm and stuff having blood in the name. So Trail Red, trailing, blood trailing. It's more or less where that came from. But then the more I thought about it over the years and stuff, it kind of just kept taking on new meaning. So like following people around with the record button or hitting the record button, just all sorts of stuff like that. And there was a bunch of things that I've kind of like put on it to change it away from just blood trailing as it became more of a business name too. But that was the origins. So
I like it. A little abstract. How did you get into the media side of things?
Well, I guess so. Like on a personal level, hobbyist level, or from a career standpoint, or both.
Both.
Well, I guess to start from just like a personal hobby standpoint, my wife was actually a photographer before I was. Her dad kind of dabbled in photography a little bit. She kind of got consumed with it in her teenage years, and then so when we started dating, it just was just something that she kind of presented in doing it. So my grandpa also gave me like a film camera when I was like 16. and at the time kind of realized that I had an eye for composition and stuff in general, but really wasn't until my wife, girlfriend at the time, kind of let me just play around with her camera that I was like, hey, I actually kind of like this. So still I didn't really take it too seriously at the time. It was just something that I could pick up a camera and kind of do. But then it was really like when I decided that I just could not stand my job that I had at the time, that I was like, all right, I'm going to figure some way to make a living with this. So after like a year of just a lot of really long nights, working a full-time job, but then like waking up at like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning just to spare some sort of time to learn how to edit, learn different softwares, figure out which one I like best, how to actually make a product that, is somewhat usable. And then just also time, doing the YouTube stuff, just, getting in edits, just trying to go through the paces as many times as I could. Eventually, in doing the YouTube stuff, came across a buddy that just so happened to do it full time in the outdoor industry. I had no idea that's what he did for the first, probably, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks to a month that I knew him. He just kept saying things, and I was like, how do you know these people? You just go into all these trade shows and stuff like that. And eventually he was like, no, dude, I do this. Like, this is my job. And I was like, oh. So fast forward over time, just between him and I being friends, and then me just, venting to him as we became closer about how the job or circumstances were going. And he eventually was just like, dude, you need to just jump ship and do this. Like, you got this. You can do this. And I was, like most people, really nervous about that. Like, I had a wife, we had a baby. There's a lot riding on me quitting my job and trying to just figure this out. I'd never owned a business. Wasn't really an entrepreneur. I'd really only been into cameras a couple years. But he was like, dude, you got this. Like, you've got the drive. Like, the skill set will continue to grow and come. We will make sure that any work that we can throw your way, we will throw your way. And so eventually it just got bad enough at work that the risk sounded not as bad. So jump ship and been going ever since then. So it's been a long journey of just let myself fail, learn from those failures, getting a little better, trying to work through those seasons where the drive might not be, super high, but, continuing to push, continuing to learn, continuing to challenge myself, put myself around people that will push me to be better. And here we are. So
heck yeah.
That's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think I talk to a lot of people, and obviously I'm sure you get it now, and we were both kind of in the same situation, but, when you've been doing something like this full time, people always ask, how did you get into that? How can I get into it? Like, what did you do to make that happen? And I feel like a lot of people want, like a easy answer, like buy this camera, do this software, and magically, like, you'll have a full-time job. But more often than not, I think most of the origin stories for guys is at some point they just were like, I'm jumping in 2 feet and leaving the safety net and figuring out how to make it happen. Usually after 1, 2, 3, however many years of doing it around work and kids and stuff like that. But I mean, at a certain point, you just kind of got to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that time spent working it into life around other things. I mean, that's something that, like I don't say this in like a bragging way by any means, because it sucked and I wouldn't recommend this to anybody. But like when I say like I was working 2 full-time jobs for a while, like I genuinely mean that. I just was not getting paid for one. And oftentimes that is what it takes to kind of get over that learning curve. And I say that not even coming out of that period of time, like absolutely killing it. It was just, my work was acceptable at that point. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that is something like there's just no way around it. You can't skip that. Like, there's going to have to be a time, unless you're, blessed to be coming right out of high school or, maybe still living with your parents or something like that. Like, if if you're an adult, you have a full-time job and you're trying to make that transition, it's just an exponential amount of grind for a period of your life that you just got to get through. But it's worth it on the back end. At least I feel so.
Yeah, I think especially now, like when I was in high school, which feels longer and longer times away as the days tick by.
Yeah.
I graduated in 2013, which some of the younger people watching this are gonna be like, I wasn't even born in 2013. Well, they should.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I was about to say they were
you're
like
12.
They're
You
like
would be
12.
now. Maybe.
There'll be some curious 12-year-olds out there wanting
Yeah,
to get into
potentially.
shooting.
Which, heck, if you're interested in it and you're 12 and you've got the time, like, start doing it now, because I mean that's
Yeah, you got
6
the jump.
years that you get to work on it. But like, I didn't even know that this was something you could do. Like, it wasn't talked about, right? When I was in high school, this was like doing media wasn't really a career path that a lot of people talked about. Like, obviously there were photographers, obviously there's videographers, there's producers and people making stuff, because TV was everywhere and movies and all that stuff. But like, it, when you go to like those career things, they're like, what do you want to do? Or what should you do based on your attributes? Like, this was never one of those things.
Yeah.
And now I think it's certainly a lot more. I think a lot of schools and a lot of programs are kind of being like, yeah, this is a viable career option. Like we got AJ, and he's just graduated high school, but he interned with us for this past, like, his last semester, and the school's like, yeah, you should definitely do that. Like, it's awesome. It's a good career choice. And like, Luke went to college for it, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like I didn't really even know that this was a career option. Like, I took a photography class, and nobody at any point in that photography class was like, yeah, this is a career.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, this could be a cool hobby that you do.
Yeah. I mean, outside of like weddings, maybe like
Yeah.
like you'd hear about like wedding photographers, but even then, like that market or that industry is so like saturated with people that like, not that there's not money to get, not that there's not jobs to get, but like it's just one of those things. It's kind of like that's at best something you kind of do as like a side gig. Like, it's still, even though it's something you get paid for and people talked about you getting paid for, like, it was still kind of like that wasn't your full thing.
Right.
So yeah, but I'm pretty much in the same boat. Like, it wasn't something I really ever considered. Like, YouTube was like that was around the time where a lot of big YouTube influencers started taking off. Like, we really started seeing like, oh, YouTube, like, actually a career. So like,
yeah,
that was kind of why I started kind of dabbling in that. But I mean, both with that and with like jumping into just the creative space in general, like, yeah, there was a lot of just like, that's not really a job. Like, that's not really a career path. Like I remember actually, ironically enough, so my boss before, the boss from the job that I quit to come do this, he actually, way back in the day he used to film for like Realtree and stuff.
Oh.
And even him, who had lived that life and been in that industry, was just like, it's not a viable career path. Like, that's why I left. It's not, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I'm trying.
Yeah, I think a lot has changed in those days, or since those days.
Yeah.
I think the hunting industry in general has become a lot more, and I don't say this with the connotation that usually comes with the word, but commercialized, right? Yeah. I mean, I think at the time when all of those shows were really starting to come out, like, it was very much the big brands had it, and they had a few videographers who also doubled as photographers, who also doubled as talent for the shows. And, like, there wasn't a whole ton of money to be made there, because it was all internal. And it really was a young man's game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was something where if you were somebody who just loved hunting so much that you were willing to do 200, 250 days a year on the road, like, you could do that. But now with social media and with TV being the way that it is, and you know, the hunger for content and for good quality images, like there's just so much more opportunity for somebody to make money and make a career out of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, for sure.
yeah, interesting. I mean, technically speaking, I also was trying to fly planes in the Air Force in high school, so maybe that colored my career options a little bit, because I probably
Yeah.
didn't look at much else besides how do I go fly planes in the Air Force. Turns out cross eyes are not real conducive to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember telling somebody one day that I wanted to fly in the air, or like fly like B-2 bombers or whatever. And they were like, "Do you have glasses?" And I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "Sucks for you." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, apparently they're a lot better about it now. I guess like you can get LASIK. It used to be like you couldn't get LASIK
Yeah.
or corrective surgery,
Yeah.
because I think I read up on it. The what they used to do before LASIK is actually take a knife to your eye and cut a flap like in your eye to correct the vision.
Yeah, that's a no for me, dog. Nah.
Yeah. And so I guess the fear was you would go fly a plane, and because planes obviously operate in 3 dimensions, there's the possibility that you're upside down pulling G forces, and that could dislodge the flap and suddenly you're blind midair. So they were
Not
like, yeah,
ideal.
we don't really want that. But now with LASIK, I guess it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah. Good old technology.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome when it does stuff that works, not when it's failing on you on the middle of a shoot. But
Well, that'll happen.
Oh, it
That's one
happens,
of those
but-
things that just, you got to get used to it. It always
Yep.
happens.
roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
It's half the fun.
Do you still use that film camera ever?
No, I think I've got it sitting in a drawer somewhere right here. I used to have it sitting on my desk. As far as I know, it's functional. I just don't have any rolls of film for it. But I've got a buddy that I met last year who shoots film exclusively, and he's been trying to get me to go buy a roll for it and come out and use it. But
You
I don't
should.
know, dude. I know. There's a part of me that wants to, but there's also a part of me that's just like, I spend so much time trying to learn like new techniques and new skill sets, and just like kind of further my knowledge on the side of the creative world that like actually pays my bills. That like it's hard for me to like start diving into a totally other side of it that has like it's just strictly a hobby at that point. So I don't know. It's something I will probably get around to, but I don't know. It's just collecting dust in the meantime.
I think it's fun because it forces you to focus on things that you don't necessarily always have to focus on with digital cameras.
Sure.
Like with a digital camera, especially in the resolutions that they offer, like you could be pretty loose with composition and change it in post and nobody
Oh,
knows.
yeah.
Right?
100%.
You've got your lighting you can change on the fly. You can make it dark, you can make it light, you can make it in the middle. Doesn't matter. You can change it all on the fly. If you don't like the colors of it, you can change that in Lightroom or whatever. With film, like you don't have that, and you can't see the photo when you take it. So
Yeah.
it's almost like it forces you to be really intentional about
Yeah.
what you're taking a picture of, that it's exposed correctly, and you kind of learn lessons the hard way, because you overexpose a whole roll of film and you're like, oh, I need to not do that next time. How do I not waste what amounts to $40 on a roll
Yeah.
of developing?
Yeah, see, that's the part where I would just be losing my mind. But
I think it's
no,
kind
I
of
mean,
fun.
it is. No, it is, and I think that's honestly, I think that's something that like really everybody who calls themselves creative, specifically a photographer, really should be in the habit of doing. Is just slowing down and forcing yourself to be more intentional about stuff. I mean, I know at least something that I've picked on guys back and forth on, and I've been picked on for. It's just like we kind of live in this age of like spray and pray when it comes to like photography. And it's just like you just turn that camera up like as many frames a second as you can, and it just through a scene.
Letter 8.
Yep. And then you go back later and you're like, all right, I got 120 photos of this dude walking over that creek. One of them's got to be in focus.
Right.
And so like the reality is like if we spent that time actually learning how to like be intentional with that shot, like, hey, I want the light to hit just like this, so I need to move over. I need my talent to stand right here. I want them to stride this way. Like, what's the subject of the photo? Is it the person? Is it the product they're holding? Is it the animal? Is it the flow of the water? Is it the scenery around them? Like, and then actually taking our time to think through, how do I frame this in such a way that really complements that subject, not just like highest megapixels, highest frames per second, and then we'll figure it out.
Biggest dynamic range you can get, and something will turn out.
Yeah, but I mean, it is an interesting, I guess that kind of two countering things, specifically in the industry that we're in, being like the outdoor space predominantly, is like those things are kind of important tools, like in the sense of having a camera that's as forgiving as possible, because we can't always control what we're doing, like what we're getting into,
right.
Whether that's on a hunt or just a super fast paced, lifestyle shoot or whatever, event coverage, you name it. Like, to have the ability to do those things is invaluable. But I do think it makes us less willing to slow down and be intentional, even when we have the time. We just blow through it because that's the rhythm we've gotten into, and so all our content's like that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're probably right. I need to pick the thing up and put some more reps in there, because I do acknowledge the value in it. It's just a matter of doing it.
If it's 35 mil, I've probably got a roll of film laying around. I'll give it to you. You can run it through there and see if you like it.
I have to bring it next time I come down there. See if we can load her up.
I did 2 rolls of film in April for CVA, actually, because we were talking to them, and they really like the film look. I was like, well, I've got a film camera, like I can shoot some photos on it, and I did take like safety photos of everything on my digital camera.
That's high risk photo shoot right there.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. I made sure that I had the safeties on the big camera, so if I just totally bungled it, I wouldn't come back to him and go, I actually messed up the entire photo shoot. But they turned out pretty good. I like now. Them.
Sorry.
I could give you a bunch of overexposed blurry stuff.
That's really cool. Dude, I didn't know you did that. I don't think I've met anybody. I think I can safely say I don't think I know anybody that has actually shot a client, like, or done any client work on film.
Oh,
since
really?
I've been in the industry. Yeah. I don't think so. Like, I know some guys that like own film cameras, and they kind of do the same as mine, collect dust, but
yeah,
like I don't think I know anybody personally that's actually done a client shoot with film. That's super cool.
Yeah, I'll have to show you the gallery. I got a few. I think I got probably, like, if each roll has 36 exposures, I think I got maybe 10 or 12 that I think are cool. I got a couple of them on my Instagram right now, but yeah, it was fun. I'd certainly like to do it again. I wish I could take it more places, but it's hard. Like, you got a lot of times I'm filming, so I got the FX6, and then I've got to have the R5 because I got to have like the good safety camera. I'm like, what do I do? Where do I put the film camera? And then all my cases are already stacked full of stuff. It's like, how am I going to fit another camera and a bunch of rolls of film and 2 more lenses for it in these cases and a backpack? Like, half the time, like, it's just not.
You just got to be a straight up pack mule, dude.
Yeah, I've come to terms with that. So one of the questions we like to ask everybody is, where do you draw your creative inspiration from? Like, what do you watch? What do you consume? What do you like? Where do you get those creative juices from?
Honestly, mostly YouTube. And before anybody judges me on that, specific
Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast. Yeah, 100%. He's my guy. That's where I go. No, I spend a lot of time just literally just searching, like, very short phrase, like short film, like whether it's topic specific or not. So like whether it's like mountain bike short film or you know, I'm trying to think of another random thing. I don't know, just anything like that. So mostly short film pieces. So anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, somewhere in there. Specifically, just looking for pieces that are not as much about just the visuals themselves, but how those visuals like actually like evoke emotion in the viewer, and then paying attention to how those parallel the storyline that's being told at the same time. So it's never like one specific person. It's never like a specific group, and oftentimes they're kind of like small, no-name creators that are just on YouTube creating and telling stories just for the sake of doing it. I really like that because, like, I feel like oftentimes, not even just our specific like niche within the industry, but just industry as a whole. So meaning like specifically, let's talk video side. We kind of like fall into these cycles of like just following a trend. So like we'll see something happen mainstream, and then everybody, let's say it's a specific like color grade or LUT. Like people see that look, and then everybody tries to find a way to implement into that into what they're doing. People see like a certain type of transition and they try to implement that. People see a certain way to tell a story and they try to implement that. And I feel like creativity in a nutshell really is that you're taking a bunch of information from like all these other pieces you see around you and kind of making it your own to a degree. But that kind of being the case, I feel like it gets really repetitive that we like see a lot of people doing a lot of similar things all around the same time, and they kind of flow in that same cycle. So I personally like to stray away from kind of the mainstream stuff. I know Caleb's already gotten on me a bunch because I never know movie references. I don't watch a lot of mainstream movies. Like I don't. Not that there's not something to learn from those, but just I feel like specifically for the type of work that I do / want to move into doing, like learning how to pair, or I guess marry the evoking of emotions through visual and storytelling at the same time is something that I just see a lot more, really in just like small creators just everywhere, different countries, wherever, on YouTube and stuff, just really trying to like push those limits. And so that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. So I know that's kind of broad and give you like a specific name, but it really is. Really is that broad. Like I don't even know who I'm going to look for half the time.
Do you have one that stood out recently that you watched and were like, man, that's cool?
Recently, and this only sticks out just because the brand is more well known. I guess this one leans more on the visual side than necessarily like the storytelling side, but I was watching actually, you know what? I'm not gonna remember this guy's name now. Dadgummit.
I know, because I put you on the spot.
I know. I would have remembered this right before you asked me. Dang, I can't remember this guy's name. Anyway, I'll just go back to the other one. So there was a film Yeti did a while ago. I think it was called it was like Cosmo or something like that. But one thing that really stood out to me in that film, it was a fishing film. It really tied, I thought the group that did the film really tied in like the music tracks just perfectly to like the guy and like really like his nationality, where he was from. Like it just fit him and kind of like what he represented, as opposed to doing like the stereotypical like fishing video type soundtracks, like kind of like a hype rap beat or whatever. Like there was a lot more drums. There was more like technical, like almost tribal, but I wouldn't call it tribal, like drum type stuff. Like it was, I don't know. It was just really cool. Like it just hit me. I was like, that's such a unique soundtrack, and it just fits the person they're telling the story about so well. So I just thought it was cool that they kind of went out of their way to do that. But it's really just small stuff like that. Like I don't know if like that whole film in itself is something I would necessarily like, draw inspiration from, but just that one thing I noticed, I was just like, dang, that's cool. Like instead of falling into this mold of like, okay, we're doing a hunting video, let's just do the stereotypical hunting tracks that everybody else is doing right now. No, it's like let's really pay attention to the details. Where are they hunting? What are they hunting? Who is this person? What is their background like? You know, like what's kind of the one distinguishing thing from their story, as opposed to just like kind of the rest of it, which might be more generic, that we can somehow tie in an aspect of this, whether it's a music track, the color, or whatever, into that. That stuff, that's just the kind of stuff that I like to consume and like to kind of pick apart and think about, and hopefully implement. So,
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think Quentin Tarantino is well known for saying that all creativity is theft in some regard. You're taking all of this stuff that you've consumed and basically personally picking out the things that you really like and then implementing those into your own style. And I know he's well known for doing it. I mean, he's always paying homages to some of his works. But I mean, if you look throughout Hollywood, I mean, you see little nods to all of these different directors and stories and things everywhere you look. And I think it's because as a human, you just can't escape that. Like, there's no way that you could insulate yourself, especially nowadays, from outside influences. And so, what you consume and what you draw from it is a large, I think, portion of the creative energy that you bring to a project. And then what separates that is how you combine those things and how you use them, and how you can draw two elements from different pieces together to form something new. And so, I mean, I think it's super important to always be looking for stuff like that. And on the note of like the music matching, I mean, that's just stuff that, when you talk about wanting to be intentional about a story, it's all those little details that matter, that give something a flavor, that give it a feel, that give it an emotion, because like you said, you could just put some random track underneath it that quote unquote fits the vibe, but it doesn't sell it, and you take that little bit of extra time to go, what really glues all of this together, and you said with that guy, they had a really specific soundtrack that I'm sure maybe they went into production knowing that, or maybe they just were hanging out with him and they're like, this guy like listens to all this kind of music, or this really fits the vibe of who he is, and you put that in there and it's almost this subliminal message to the audience of like, hey, here's a little taste of this guy, and here's how we can infuse that into a story to really connect that to you, and in a way that's so subconscious. Like, that's not something that most viewers are going to think about, right? They're not going to be like, oh, yeah, I really felt like I got a better understanding of who this guy was as a person because of the soundtrack. But they did get a better understanding of that person because of the soundtrack, And it just all goes back to what you were saying before, like being intentional about what decisions you make both in production and post-production, and how important that is to overall storytelling. So outside of, you said you didn't have any hobbies besides hunting, but that's not the truth, because you also, and maybe this is very recent, but you have a motorcycle. You like riding the motorcycle, I assume.
Dude.
I feel like you would probably not ride the motorcycle if you didn't like to ride the motorcycle, so I'm just going to roll with it.
I do like the motorcycle. I like the motorcycle a lot. Yeah, oh, good.
When is that a new thing? Like a recent thing?
Relatively. I think I've been riding a little over a year now, or something like that, at least like on the street. There was a time back in like middle school into early high school, I rode dirt bikes a lot with a buddy because his family was super into motocross. So like I had experience riding them, or just riding like motorcycles in some capacity. Yeah, it wasn't really till recently though that I like started riding on the street. But yeah, I like it a lot. It quite frankly, like hunting for many years was kind of just that like escape for me from like everyday life. And still to a degree it is, but just now with between work, travel schedules, family, 3 kids at home, it's much harder to scrape out the time to, go put into just scouting for like an entire evening or something, especially if I've been working all day and stuff. So that's kind of, motorcycles kind of just turned into my like, all right, I just need 15 seconds to just not think. Like, just go cruise for a second. And then, subsequently it also just saves me a ton of money on gas because my truck gets like 12 miles to the gallon. So it's kind of
Yes, you're certainly not the most fuel efficient vehicle.
No. 04 Expedition guzzles gas. Doesn't think twice about it. But
my Tacoma does the same thing. So just
side effect of having a truck. But yeah, so that's kind of a nice side of the motorcycle. But yeah, honestly though, it has been cool too. Kind of exploring kind of like the creative side of the motorcycle world too. Very different style content than what we have in the outdoor space. And personally, I just think that's cool. Like I've kind of met some guys over the year and gotten to go out and shoot content with them. It's actually funny, like when like I'll be like, hey, you want to link up? Let's shoot some content or something at some point. And they're always like, dude, I don't know if I can afford that. Like, I don't want to insult you. I was like, dude, I'm just trying to have fun. Like, just experiment here. Like, it's not always about the dollar. Like, let's just try this out, see what happens. And gotten some really cool stuff. So, yeah, it's funny. My Instagram went from like strictly hunting stuff to like hard turn into some motorcycle stuff the past few months. So, sorry about that. Anybody that might have been taken off guard by that, but I don't think I'm big enough for anybody to really care that much. So I'm rolling with it. But
I mean, Instagram should be a place where you put stuff that you like.
100%. Yeah.
I think people sometimes get too caught up in like, oh, I gotta fit like an aesthetic. I gotta like make sure that I really capture my audience. It's like for 95% of people, you don't need to worry about who your audience is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually having that conversation with a buddy the other day because he does work alongside of another brand in the industry, and so like he's used to kind of like being in the circle of conversation around like their content and their Instagrams and stuff like that. And so he was asking me like, he was like, hey, like I was thinking about like filming some stuff of just like me running every day and just kind of like venting some of my thoughts and like posting that as like a reel on my Instagram. He's like, do you think that's a good idea? Like, do you think that's like kind of fits like what my page like really holds or is trying to do or whatever? And I was like, dude, are you selling something? He's like, nah. I'm like, this is just for your Instagram? He's like, yeah. I'm like, then who gives a crap? Like, do it.
Yeah.
like do what you want to do. Like, I feel like the thing that's consistent across maybe not like in the past couple of years, but at least early on in the big like YouTube influx and like social media influencer influx was that most of them didn't start because they were like out to make money or make a living or like win the algorithm. Most of them started because they enjoyed doing it, and because they enjoyed it so much, it was consistent, and eventually it just became something because enough other people enjoyed watching them do something they enjoyed. Yeah. Like the more people I talk to in the industry, the more I hear that same story just regurgitated again and again and again. I was like, it was never about this. Like, I didn't expect it to be this. I mean, shoot, even Joe Rogan says that, I think, every like month just about. He's like, I never thought this. We were just doing this because we wanted to do that. Now he's got one of the biggest podcasts in the world. So, I mean, while yes, there is strategy, while yes, marketing is a thing for brands and for, even if that brand is just a person, like that's a whole world in and of itself. But there's also a level of just like, create for you and do what you enjoy and post what you want to post. And it is hard to kind of flip back and forth. At least for me, it's kind of been a mental struggle to like be learning how to utilize social media and really perfect that craft to market somebody while also not giving a crap about it myself and just doing what I want to do. But I mean, that is the reality of it. Just post what you want to post.
Yeah, I think, and I've been bad about this. I will say my social media personally is terrible. I take probably tens of thousands of images a year, and I post none of them. Um, but that's more because I'm a perfectionist, and I only like want to post images that I like as a creative. That I'm like, okay, yeah, I like that. That to me represents, what my artistry is about, and also like 75% of my work is long form video, which does not play well on Instagram. Like I can't go put it on Instagram. Um, but I think the more the more we make social media about a place to make money, the less it becomes about a place to express yourself. And I was having this conversation with Luke the other day because he's very young and he did not grow up in the same world that you and I grew up in. Like I remember MySpace and how big MySpace was and how fun MySpace was. Like MySpace was there was obviously drama because everybody was in middle school, but
Yeah.
uh, like MySpace was cool because really it didn't matter. Like everybody made their page and you put on your page whatever you felt like you wanted to. Like
Yeah.
it looked like a manifestation of your personality online. And like if you wanted it to be dark and grungy, it was dark and grungy. If you wanted it to be like bright and fun, it was bright and fun. And you had music and photos and all these things. And I think of that as one of the, early examples of social media. And now you go to like Instagram and Facebook and it's all the same. Like there's no, besides the content that you put on there, you can't customize how it looks. You can't like put your favorite songs at the moment on there on the profile. Like they've almost distilled it to the point where everybody feels like they got to do the same thing on there. And you lose like that individuality. And I think social media should be social to some extent, especially if you're using it as like an individual. Now, if you're a brand, obviously it's much different. You're trying to sell a product, you're trying to demonstrate, a brand image. And so that's when you get all these conversations of like, what fits this? What sells this product? How do we want people to view us? But like as people, I feel like it's dangerous to be always thinking about your life through the lens of somebody else. And like we've all fallen victim to that. At least I have. I think I can speak for a lot of people. Like you go, man, I don't know if I want to put that up there. Like nobody is going to like that. Or, yeah, this is kind of a weird thing. Like, I'm not going to do that. But at the end of the day, you should be putting stuff out there that excites you, that you think is fun, that you think is cool. And the people who think it's fun and cool will enjoy it. And the people who don't, hey, who cares? Like, when you went to school, you had friends and they all thought what you thought was cool too. Then you had the other people who didn't think it was cool, and that was fine.
Yeah, they did their thing.
Yeah, everybody did their own thing. And I think it's certainly interesting. Social media is very interesting. It's kind of a weird world we live in because I, on one hand, sometimes wish social media would go away completely. And the other hand, obviously, it's a large part of how I make my living.
Yeah. Kind of pays some bills.
Yeah. I told Cleo yesterday, I was like, sometimes I wish like social media would just go away and then I could just only do TV. Like it was just TV and I didn't have to create 15 reels for every episode of TV that I did.
Yeah.
But like nowadays, I feel like, and I'm bad about this, I should probably do more, but like I make media for a living, and other than a lot of like what I make for here, like I don't really take a whole bunch of photos and videos and stuff of like everyday life. And that's more because I just like the more that I've done this, the more I realize like how when you're taking pictures, when you're doing video, like if you're trying to create content, you're like separating yourself a little bit from that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not really like living in it. And I feel like I want to be more intentional about going, you know what? Sometimes life is just meant to be lived. Like, I know I was there. Why does
Yeah.
it matter that other people know I was there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I got to see it with my two eyes and hear it and smell it and taste it. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's what really matters. You know, the experiences that you get to have as a person.
Yeah. No, it's always been a kind of been a conflicting, like two conflicting ideas in my mind. Because like on one hand, I 100% agree with you. Like
Yeah.
I was always the kid that like when my mom was like, "Hey, let's take a picture while we're on vacation," I was gonna fight to the death to avoid that picture because I was like, "No, I want to go freaking swim in the pool. Like that's what we came here to do, not take a picture." And so like, part of me is like, "All right, I want to hold true to that, not harass my kids with a camera while we're like doing whatever." But the other part of me, like, there is something special about capturing a moment and getting to like relive that. I mean, like, even just the fact that like I have grown to love filming other people, like whether it's professionally or just friends, I've grown to love filming other people, harvest a deer or in a duck blind or whatever, more than I've, you know, maybe not more, but very close, if not equal to the same as I enjoy having that harvest myself or
Yeah.
taking the shot myself or whatever. Like, because then I can show that to them and they get all amped up. And then I get to go back later and relive that a million times and edit it or whatever. And then get to show them again 2 weeks later and they get even more amped up about it. And then a year later, it comes back on the feed and we're all
Yeah.
amped up again. Like that, that's something that just like, when I don't film or I don't take those photos, like I always regret it when that year mark comes around and I'm like, dang, we could have filmed that or we could have got that on camera or whatever. But yeah, on the other side though, technically I never actually witnessed that deer get harvested because I was looking at a screen. Like, you know what I mean?
Can't tell
Like,
you how many times people are like talking about the hunt, and like I'm sitting there as a big group of people talking about the hunt, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there was all this stuff going on like outside of this," and they're like, "Did you see that?" Like, no, I was
no.
I was like this, and there was a
Yeah.
really big deer, and I was very focused on making sure that that deer was exposed properly,
Yeah.
composed properly, and focused.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's a thing.
it is. One last, I don't know if it's a question, but maybe this might be two. If
All
you had to distill your creative philosophy, quote unquote, I know those are big terms, into like a few sentences, what would it be? Like what drives your creative process? What drives your creative juices internally? Like what's important to you as a creative? Gotta ask the tough questions.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Well, I think I struggle because I think there's been a pretty large shift in the past, like probably 6 months for me. Because really I've just spent so much time, like people here, oh, I've been in the industry 5 years, like, that's way like more than enough time to like, learn and, go and do that stuff. And while yes, like I've been proficient for a while now, like there's still always things to learn. So I've just buried my face in as many books and YouTube videos and cameras and like camera menus and all this stuff as I possibly can, and just learn and learn and learn and learn and keep getting better to where it's just like not even a second thought. And like, it's just more about what am I going to, like, what's the message behind what I create, not how am I going to create it. But so I guess then really in like the past 6 months or so, I've been focusing a lot on just like, okay, now I know how to create things. Like I know the mechanics of how do I use this camera, how do I use this software, how do I use these lights, this grip gear, this whatever. How do I take all those things and actually make something of value that impacts people? So that kind of took me on a deep dive of just like storytelling, like the structure of storytelling. What does telling a story actually mean? And then in doing so, how do you do it in such a way that's not just something that rolls off people's shoulders or in one ear and out the other? So I've been kind of working on how I would define that, or how I would kind of explain that. And I think the only way I've really kind of verbalized it yet, and I really don't know if it's perfected, but kind of along the lines of what I'm trying to get at is like, you can tell a story, like you can say something, but if those words don't create an experience, then what you're saying is going to be lost on a lot of people. Like you've fallen in line of the death scroll. Like you're just going to be in the eyes, out the mind in a moment, like in a brief moment. So I guess my philosophy behind creating is ultimately create content and tell stories in such a way that actually impacts people and leaves them with a cause or a feeling. Because if you do those things, then it's not a matter of like, oh, I have to go do something. It's like, oh, I want to go do something. So that applies to marketing, or that applies to, raising awareness, that, applies to, whatever, expressing love for somebody or whatever, like whatever it may be, using the tools that we have to not just put visuals in front of somebody's face, but to actually leave them with a lasting impression far beyond the actual visual. So that's kind of where I'm at in my brainstorming process around that. I'm sure that'll continue to evolve, but that's what drives me as a creative right now, and what I've been kind of just learning how to do and how to be proficient at and how to implement into work and to personal and kind of all the different aspects of what we do. So
I like it.
Yeah, hopefully that makes sense, because
it's
been a lot of just bouncy ball or pinballing around in my brain for like the past really 6 months collectively, but like really hardcore like the past 3 months. It's just been like a large majority of my thought process. So trying to figure that out clearly and concisely.
Well, sometimes creativity isn't clear or concise.
Yeah.
As long as it lands, that's what matters, right?
Yeah, that's what matters. So, and I mean, the process is the fun part. As stressful as it can be, I feel like that process is kind of what we live for as creatives. Because once it's done, then it's like, okay, well, we did that.
Yeah.
Now what's next?
On to the next one.
Yeah. So, yeah, trying to enjoy the process, not stress out too much about kind of my thoughts and stuff and all that stuff. But it is it's interesting when you really dive into it and just really start thinking about it, and just how much of an impact media can actually have. If going back to what we talked about with film, if you're intentional with it, how much impact it can actually have, as opposed to just being the next 30-second hot thing on Instagram. Maybe it'll actually leave an impact that'll stick with somebody for a while.
Yeah, I dig it. Sweet. Well, my camera has died.
Nice.
So I think that is the universe's sign that it's time to wrap up. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, always technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I remembered Caleb said he was going to bring me a battery, and then I think he forgot to bring me a battery, and I forgot that he was supposed to bring me a battery. And here we are. So I'm hoping.
Remind me next time I see you, and I'll show you where the constant power port is on that camera.
Yeah, I know where it's at. As soon as it died, I went, I should have put that in. But
always something, dude.
Yeah, it's always something. Hopefully, to those people who are watching this right now, they're hearing my voice and not seeing that my camera is dead. But if you are, then hey, you know what? We're just trying to get back on the podcast grind, and there's a few kinks that need worked out. We'll work them out, and then as soon as we do that, new kinks will arise, and it'll just be a never-ending cycle. But
hey, there's a message on that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it.
I don't know. I would like it to be perfect. That's Ryder's message. But
never mind. Don't post it. It probably sucks. There's some issue. Just hold off. That's the right message, apparently.
Yeah, I'm a perfectionist, but that's well known. People know that. If they don't, you will find out. So, anyways, it's been awesome, Chris. I'm stoked to have you on the team. I know everybody's stoked to have you here.
Heck yeah, man.
We've already done some fun
Likewise.
stuff, and I know we're gonna do some more fun stuff. So,
Yes, sir.
you all will be seeing more of him. You'll be definitely seeing his work, and yeah, wrapping up's always hard. I never have a good bow to tie things in, but
It's all right. I like it.
that's it for the Redneck Tech Podcast, Copeland Creative Podcast. That's it for this podcast.
This particular podcast.
Yeah, so
Deuces,
we will
people.
see y'all next time.